Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 16th meeting of the Transportation Committee. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Second order of business is approval of our minutes from June 17th. Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns about those? No?
No.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are approved. We do have a full agenda tonight, so we'll have to, make sure we stay on track. First item up, we have a request for a stop sign on Hallmark. Aimee, I believe you've got the background data on this one?
I do have the background data on this one. So we had a request from a neighbor. She had concerns of speeding. She lives on Hallmark off of Qualtrough. And she was asking for either a stop sign, speed hump, something to help slow the traffic down here as they're coming off of Qualtrough and down Hallmark. So we did put the traffic counters out in July. We put one set down on Hallmark Road, and then just to get another set of traffic data, we also put one down on Bunker Hill Drive. So in this area, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. Our 85th percentile speed on Hallmark was 26 miles an hour, and our 85th percentile speed on Bunker Hill was a little higher at 30 miles an hour. So I did put all of that info into the traffic calming analysis worksheet. In the end, I think it only racked up to maybe 1 or 2 points. And so at this time, no physical measures would be warranted, such as speed humps.
Yeah.
In terms of the stop sign, we follow the guidance of the MUTCD, which tells us that stop signs are not to be used for speed control, so that also wouldn't be a consideration here in order to deal with any speeding concerns. Yes, I think that's the data. Does anyone have any questions?
No. So we didn't have any accident.
I did look at the accident data. Thank you for reminding me. I did look at the accident data for Hallmark Drive for the last 3 years. There was one accident, and it was someone they were driving on Qualtrough and turning left onto Hallmark, and I think they cut the corner a little bit too tight and hit the stop sign here at the corner of Hallmark and Qualtrough. So that was the only accident recorded.
And any sight distance issues at that intersection?
I don't believe so. We can pull up the street view.
Did we look at the intersection just to the north along Kevin Drive a couple years ago?
I think a couple years ago we looked at that one.
Can you look at the approach
Yeah.
from the other direction? From Holly Ridge?
Oh, from here.
Yeah.
It's pretty open.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is,
So there's north-south stop signs today, and
Mm-hmm.
the request was for east-west stop signs.
yeah.
And it's also generally not common to put a stop sign when you're coming into a neighborhood, because you normally want that free flow for
Right.
to not have an issue with queuing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, based on the 85ths, it doesn't look like there's a speeding concern in the area. If there's not a sight distance issue, I don't know what the rest of the committee.
It just
Thanks,
looks like
Bennett.
from that one street there, it's a neighbor that's speeding. That's who they're seeing speed, because I know why you did the other street, because it cuts across, but that one is not a cut through.
Oh, you mean Bunker Hill?
Yeah, Bunker Hill cuts
Yeah.
through, but Hallmark does not.
Yeah, it doesn't quite cut all the
I
way
mean,
to
between the
Creek.
two of them, if you're trying to cut through between Creek and Qualtrough, I think we're just trying to make sure we kind of captured both ways and see
Right.
how people are
Yeah.
utilizing it. But again, as stated, speed limit or stop signs are not intended for speed
Traffic, yep.
control.
Mhm.
They're there for accident issues, sight distance issues. There's other reasons in the manual that follow
So if
when a
the,
stop sign is warranted.
if the analysis dictated that it was a 1 or 2, generally with that, we would recommend enforcement and ask the county sheriff's, Monroe County Sheriff's Office to do enforcement during whatever time period has the highest, higher speeds. So maybe a recommendation from the committee could be to look at that and have that recommendation sent to the Monroe County Sheriff's Office for whatever time period would be appropriate.
I would agree with that.
Everybody good with that?
It works.
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
You'll have takeaways.
Okay. So our next one is Henderson Drive. Again, speeding concerns and a speed hump request.
Correct. Let me pull up Henderson. So Henderson connects up on the north side at Baird and down on the south side at Penfield. Penfield Road. We did, yes, we had a complaint from a resident about speeding on Henderson. So we, and also I think they mentioned too that they were concerned about cut-through traffic if there was some sort of blockage on Baird. So we did put the traffic counters out in 2 locations on Henderson in July. One up north of Ludlow Way, closer to Baird, and one more south, closer to 441. So the speed limit on this road, on its whole length, is 25 miles an hour again. On the north side, we got an 85th percentile speed of 28 miles an hour.
Okay.
And on the more southern side, we got an 85th percentile speed of 22 miles an hour. Again, using our traffic calming analysis worksheet, I believe this had 2 points. I included one of them as a cross-through just to be conservative, or I'm sorry, as a cut. I included it as a cut-through to be conservative. So again, that would recommend educational measures. So that could be enforcement from the sheriff's office. And I will say we also did have the speed card out here on Henderson Drive. The feedback, it shows how fast you're going as you drive by. We did have that out in July as well.
And then did you completed the speed hump
Oh, yes.
analysis as well?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Let me pull that up. Yes, so as you all know, as you recently approved the policy for speed humps for the town of Penfield, I did look at, even though the traffic calming analysis didn't necessarily recommend physical measures here, I did look at our policy and say, would this follow our policy? So there's a lot of different criteria that this street does meet. So for example, it's a local road, so that is one criteria that it meets. Primarily residential, less than 40 feet. The grading in this area would allow for speed humps. But when you get to the traffic study portion of our policy, we're required to have an ADT of over 500 in order to warrant speed humps. And I don't think we had that here. Give me 1 second and I can pull up the numbers. On the southern end, I think our ADT, yes, our ADT is 187, so that's well below the required 500 vehicles per day. We also require that the 85th percentile speed must be at least 35 miles an hour in order to warrant speed humps, and in this case, we had 85th percentile speeds of 28 and 22 miles an hour, so that also doesn't meet the criteria. And yes, okay, the last criteria that we didn't meet was 40% of the traffic needs to be driving at or above the speed limit, and in this case, we only had 5% of the traffic driving above the speed limit. So or at least in the southern section that we're looking at now. So, yeah, based on both the traffic calming analysis and when we look at our speed hump policy, it looks like speed humps are not warranted in this location. But again, yeah, I would say educational measures and enforcement measures might be beneficial here.
I'd agree with you.
Yeah. Any
Yep.
thoughts?
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one, we're kind of staying in the same neighborhood, and I'm going to add one more to piggyback off of this just because it recently came up. So a four-way stop sign request at Brentwood and Willowhurst. Sarah?
Sure. So a request came from a resident due to the site distance in that area. So Aimee and I actually went out and checked it. On the corner of Willowhurst and Brentwood, the northwest corner, there's some shrubs that definitely could be causing some site distance concerns. And we felt, so this is the southwest corner. So there's some trees that it makes it a little hard to see the stop sign as you're approaching. That could be trimmed in the right of way. And then if Aimee goes to the next picture, you can see the shrub on the corner that definitely causes some site distance concerns. I know that previously in 2023, residents came in with a similar concern, and the DPW went out and trimmed the bushes that were there. They're the same bushes, but they also took out one additional one. I would make the same recommendation at this time to do that. And then I think it would be appropriate for us to wheel off the site distance based on those trimmings. Does anyone have any questions?
No, it just makes sense.
Okay. They did ask for a four-way stop there. Generally, our first action is not to install signage. It also, that's not how the majority of the neighborhood has the signage. So if we were to install stop signs there, we would want to do an analysis for the entire neighborhood. Generally, it's most appropriate to take the small steps first before we move forward with those bigger steps.
And did we have any accident history at this intersection?
Actually, the last accident was prior to that meeting in 2023, and that was the only accident since then. So nothing between 23 and now either.
Okay. So it sounds like either we can reach out to the homeowner, probably first and foremost, and ask them to trim their shrubs, and secondly, if they don't, I think based on the aerial photos, they're clearly in the right-of-way. So I think DPW has the right to trim them back, looking at and/or remove them, being in the right-of-way if they're causing a visual issue, but.
So I can follow up with Bob, the director of the DPW, to work with the resident to trim it or have his staff trim it.
Okay. Good with that?
Yep.
Just for expedience of time, we did get one more, and I know I'm going off agenda slightly, but there was another request in that same neighborhood before we jump out. So did get at the same time, the neighborhood heard we were looking at Willowhurst and Brentwood. The request came in for Kenmont and Henderson. So that's the side street that comes in from Baird Road, off of Baird and in. It clearly is a T intersection. There's no signage on it now. Again, I think it's a site distance issue, concern at that. I think you guys also have some follow-up on that one as well.
Yeah, this image is taken from Kenmont looking at Henderson.
Yep.
So heading in from Baird, going eastbound.
Correct.
So you can see slightly there is some arborvitae and shrubs on that corner. I think you have a picture closer, right? Yeah. So there is some, driving up in the truck, it is a little hard to see down towards the north side. So it would be appropriate, again, to address that site distance with trimming. and see how that changes the site distance, and then potentially take steps from there if necessary.
Any accident history at this location?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Not in the last 3 years. And none that have been recorded.
So at the stem of the T, it's obviously you need to yield or stop if need be, but with some site distance issues that may exacerbate the situation right now.
Yep.
Yeah, and I imagine in a car being lowered probably be a little harder even than the truck, so.
Okay.
I think based on being there, trimming should help, but I think we should at least follow up to make sure that that resolves the site distance concern.
Okay, so our plan of action is contact homeowner to trim tree first off, if not, staff to follow up, and then subsequent to that, as we've done in other locations, we can go back once it is trimmed and wheel off and actually look at the site distance and, see if there's proper site distance in the area, whether, a yield sign is warranted or a stop if there's lack of site distance.
I do wonder, in a situation like this, if, when it's more open and you're coming into a T intersection, if you can see everything that's going on, you might be less likely to slow down or come to a complete stop, versus a situation like this where it is, a little bit more difficult to see. You're probably going to slow down to see what, cars are coming. So
You would hope.
from a behavioral aspect, but that being said, obviously line of sight is pretty important here, so like.
Well, and I can tell you from even just being there, when a resident was coming the opposite direction, like they had to slow down to see if anyone was coming in. With that, ideally, for intersections like this, like coming into the neighborhood, you want to be able to see who's there, especially since it's not a controlled intersection.
Right.
Okay. Any other comments, concerns? Okay.
Good.
So we've got some follow-up on that. We'll carry that into our next, our future meeting. So back on the agenda, we did have a request for no parking signs along the pond at Woodfield Drive. So as we're pulling up the aerial photos, I know there's been some concerns from neighbors. I think we may have some neighbors here tonight. This is a town-owned pond. We do have, ownership and maintenance of it, and I think there's been some concern recently of cars parking up on the embankment, parking along the road, fishing going on. So we did receive the request, to put no parking signs along that section. I know you guys are familiar with some other areas. We have no parking signs and maybe the good and the bad of that. Just kind of like to hear the committee's thoughts on that and how that may work there, and then.
You want me to express my opinion? Yes, okay. There's at the park at
Greenwood Park.
Greenwood Park, thank you, at Embry and Scribner, there is soccer fields there, and there are big wooden posts further in that say no parking on grass, with cars parked in front of the sign that says no parking on grass, and there's lines of them. Doesn't work. You don't mean me is the attitude most people have.
So I know no parking signs come with goods and bads.
Yeah.
We've had people request no parking signs before, and the no parking signs apply to everyone.
Right.
So we've had people that say they want a no parking sign in front of their house in order to keep others from parking there, but that also means that they
can't park there.
can't park
And their
there,
guests can't park there.
their guests can't park there. So thank you. Aimee kind of pulled up, where we've got it on Scribner Road, and I know some of the challenges we've had in there. I know hopefully this year it got a little better. One, we've added more parking for Greenwood Park, and two, they've relocated some of the sports groups there to Harris Whalen Park.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that's alleviated a little bit of the.
I think so. And then we also touch base with the ones who were playing soccer. I think we touch base.
We've reached out to
To the coaches.
those groups in lacrosse and advocate for them to park in the parking lot and not to park on the road, but I know we've had
They still parked on.
They do.
some challenges with that. So
But not as
Well,
many.
in this,
and
we
it's-
don't really have the opportunity either to reach out to like the sports groups because that's
It's
not
not a-
the problem that they're having. It's that people are fishing at that pond and
Right,
and
right.
using it recreationally. I think, well, I do have a question, and maybe
Can
Mr.
you
or
pull up
Captain
the
Bay
street-
might have an
Can you
answer.
pull up the street view for the pond area?
For enforcement for no parking signs, does that fall under Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Is that like someone can call a non-emergency number and they would get ticketed, or does that not have anything to do with your office?
It does have to do with our office. There is not a non-emergency number. They would have
That's
to
what I
call
wasn't sure.
911
Okay.
and say that there's a parking issue. For us, there isn't enforcement. It's Town of Penfield parking tickets and things along that line.
Okay.
That would be the enforcement.
But that would be someone would have to call the number, and then that vehicle would have to still be there when an officer arrived.
That's correct. You could also put a special attention in for the area. We can direct our patrols to that area for
Okay.
enforcement for that. But among the other things that we do, that would be an additional responsibility, so.
That makes sense. I think with that information, and if we were to put the signs in, I think we would want to also consider if signs went in along this strip that Aimee has showing along the frontage of the pond. I would be concerned if I was a resident in that neighborhood, if someone's not parking there because they're following the sign, are they going to park in front of my house?
Right, exactly. I was just
And
gonna
truthfully,
say
that wouldn't be my preference, but I also understand maybe you don't want someone to park in front of the pond.
But does that push the concern further up or down
Yeah,
the street?
that'd be my concern.
What,
Right.
I
Which
guess,
they're legally parking on the road.
Now, you
know.
said you'd
What-
run
what-
by there.
yeah, I go by there at least once a week. I'll probably go by there this evening as well. And I've never experienced a situation where a car was parked into the road where it became a life or a safety issue. So I guess I would like to know what the concern actually is. Is there a life or a safety issue, or cars having difficulty parking, or someone making a left turn and there's someone parked off the side of the road? Is there any type of concern in terms of, traffic or?
I mean, I've seen pictures of people parking up on the berm and up on the grass. I think that's a different issue to look at. Is there a concern of people parking on the berm or on,
That our residents want.
on the adjacent area? I mean, I don't know if you have a representative. We don't officially have public participation, so if you have a representative from the group that wants to come up, we'll give you a minute or two to address the group if you'd like to, but
These chairs
come up,
here
you
with the
need to give
microphone.
your-
Up to a microphone. And,
give your name and address for the record, and then,
yeah.
Is it on?
yes, it is.
Kathleen Price, 60 Woodfield Drive, Webster. So my husband and our neighbor are back behind me. The main issue with the parking, as well as just general fishing, and if I could just give you a little bit of background of what we've done, because we have been very active with the help of Bob Ockenden and Aaron, is that Aaron?
Nope.
No.
This is Aimee. I'm Sarah.
Oh, Erin Loftus, she's been very helpful.
Okay.
So what we asked, they've done just about everything so far. The only thing we have left is the no fishing signs. And what happens is the Woodfield Pond was put on some app called Fishbrain. And
Oh,
so what has happened is people from all over the county are coming and taking pictures of these big fish that they're catching in the pond. And that's drawing all kinds of people from all over the city and the county and everywhere to come fish on the pond. So Terrace, our neighbor, and another neighbor have installed private property signs. Bob and Jeff and Aaron gave us the okay to put no trespassing signs out, so we've let the neighbors know that you can do that.
On your property, though.
On our
correct?
property, right, not on the town.
Because I
but-
say, because we own, no neighbor touches the water around the pond. We own all the way around the pond.
So much of the pond has come back over time that I think a lot of the properties now are actually
Underwater?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's neither here nor there. What happens is we get people from all over the city and the county coming into our backyards and leaving lines all in the bushes and the trees. My husband has had to take baby geese's legs out of the fishing line that they leave. We've picked up, I've sent in numerous pictures of trash that we've had to pick up, and it's just a big mess. So we've installed those signs. They brought boulders out to sort of designate one of the neighbors' properties in the hopes of stopping the golf carts that are going around there as well. We've got golf carts all over the place.
Okay.
So our last thing that we are really asking for, well, we asked for help with the island, but I don't think that's going to happen. But they did remove the spool that was in the pond for about 2 years this morning, and we really appreciate that. But now we just need some help with people parking all which ways alongside the pond and bringing in all kinds of different people from all over the place. We have been in touch with the developers of the Fishbrain app, and they're working very closely with us trying to get either the pond taken off or designated as a no fishing zone. We think that in itself may stop people from finding the pond. And we've gone to the bait shops in the area and asked them to please don't tell people about the pond when they're selling bait to them. So we're doing everything that we can possibly do to try to mitigate it. But if you look at some of the pictures that we've sent in, the cars are parked this way, and there's people on buckets and sitting on chairs and
So-
makeshift chairs, sitting in their cars. It's not good.
I mean, I think the parking
I was
is.
gonna say, can I
think-
ask,
I think there's two different
Yeah,
things
it
there to
sounds like
me.
you're having
I mean, one, people.
multiple concerns. So
And
I understand.
Penfield has addressed, I would say, 80% of them.
And that's wonderful. I'm so glad that the town's been able to help
Yeah.
at this point. My question to you is, is your hope for the no parking signs to prevent people from coming to the pond? Or is it to prevent people from parking along that frontage where that T is, that T intersection? Or something else? Like, what is your hope
This is
for the
my
no
husband,
parking
Kevin.
signs?
I understand, my name's Kevin Radcliffe, I'm at 60 Woodfield Drive too, and I understand the public comment section is usually at the end, so I appreciate
Well,
that.
we actually
No.
don't have a public comment section.
Yeah,
so-
committees don't.
So please,
Thank you.
please a short
Yeah.
comment.
Right, I will. The Greenwood Park is different because they get hundreds of people there when they're playing the soccer and lacrosse and everything. I mean, there's inadequate parking there, I think, but our areas, we're not trying to prevent people from fishing. I don't have a problem there. Most people don't have a problem with that. It's the chaos that's ensued as a result of people just parking every which way, leaving trash, bringing barbecues.
Uh-huh.
It's been difficult, and we're trying to maintain a neighborhood feel and not some large community activity zone that everybody comes to like that. That's the gist of it. And I do have to second what my wife said. The town of Penfield has been absolutely extremely helpful since we started meeting with Jeff and some of the other folks there.
Bob and Aaron are great.
Yeah, they've been great, and so we appreciate everything. And I don't know that no parking signs is going to be the end-all, be-all. I don't think it is, but it's going to deter a certain percentage of the people from parking there.
So you're going to have to be calling the sheriff's department.
Well,
Well, and I think
Ticket them.
to me, there's two different issues.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One is people parking here, there, and everywhere. Is there rocks or a barrier along the road that keeps people from parking up on the berm? The second item is if you put no parking signs in front of the pond, I'm going to park in front of your house, which has a no parking sign. So are we moving the problem from next to your house to in front of your house? They park in front of your house, they have the legal right to park there, whether it's in front of your house or not. You can call the sheriffs, they still have the legal right to park in front of your house. So to me,
Is there a possibility to bring boulders in?
that's
Well, so I think.
that's outside of the realm of this group, and that's why I'm trying to
Yeah.
extrapolate is what's the realm. The no parking signs, to me, and see what the rest of the committee, pushes the problem to the east and to the west. Okay, if I comply with one, do I ignore the sign? Or two, I listen to the sign and I just drive 10 feet down the road and I park in front of your house.
Right.
Now I'm perfectly legal, I walk back down the road and I go fish in the pond. So our part is to look at the signs, and is it going to solve the issue that's there? If it's the parking on the berm, I think there's other things to look at with that, and that might fall under the parks or the town board to look at
If you
that.
put rocks
So-
there, that's
Yeah,
going to move.
town land.
Question,
it's
on this busiest day, how many cars are parked there?
You'll have,
15 cars?
The whole street, Muslim Drive, along the pond, so far.
Oh, wow.
Do you have photos of that?
Yes.
Because I've never seen that many cars there.
well, it's
It could
certain
just be
times of
timing.
the week.
Yeah.
It gets busy certain times, and other times, now that school's open, it's subsided.
Okay.
So, Mark, and just because you're the chairperson, I'll ask. I think it might be appropriate, unless you have anything additional that like you haven't shared, I think we should talk as a committee and figure out if it would be appropriate and beneficial to put no parking signs along that strip that we're talking about, or if it should be redirected to a department within the town to determine what the next
If
step would
there's a
be.
barrier or not. So we'll talk with the group.
Like,
If
not
you
to-
give
not
us
to
a-
cut anything
some
off,
chance,
but just-
we've got more agenda to get through, but
That's fine.
I think we may need more time and more information to determine, to me personally, I think you're just moving the situation. I think the way you're handling it of calling the fishing groups, I know we've been in contact with the DEC to make sure if they can come out and stop in and check if people have licenses.
Right.
Talking to the app, to me, those are solving the problem more than putting no parking signs.
Yeah.
To me, I'm just going to drive 10 feet down the road, and then you say, well, could put a no parking sign in front of my house. Okay, great. One, either you move the problem further, or when and if your family, your friends come over to visit, now you're in violation of the no parking sign, and that car could be, ticketed. So that's why I said there's ramifications to doing that, and then the ask before this group is the no parking signs, and I don't
Right.
know if, one, I don't know if we're going to decide that tonight, and two, I don't know, we'll have to continue our discussion amongst the group. So unless you've got a last word to
Well, I think
add in.
that's a reasonable approach, and the Sheriff's Department has a lot more serious issues to face than having being called by
Say a no parking violation
So-
probably falls pretty far down the list of,
Right, and if there's, I'm sure there's other possible remedies that you folks can talk about and we can work collaboratively on, so I appreciate your time.
okay.
Appreciate you being willing to collaborate, too.
Yes.
I mean,
Thank you.
Well, like I
That's
said,
awesome.
the town
Thank
has
you.
been wonderful.
They've been
It's, the spool went out this morning, so there's a lot of good stuff happening.
All right.
There's a lot of fireworks going on at Winfield Drive.
All right.
That spool was in there for a long time, too.
Yes. And during the wintertime, it's unsightly.
No problem.
When they
we
drop
lower the
pond,
water.
So, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
So this is a regional pond. It picks up Tufa Glen, comes in off of Scribner. So the three ponds are connected, by pipes, in between it.
Did not know it even was there.
Yep. So, again, we don't advertise it is a town stormwater pond. So as we've talked in Watershed, there's many other ponds that are stormwater ponds. Obviously, clearly, we don't promote fishing. We don't promote, usage of it. To us, it's a stormwater maintenance
Right.
pond.
And
There
it
is
gets
almost like a
fish in it
little bit of
because
a-
birds.
I want to call it a dock, but there's almost like a little wooded area that you can walk out.
The dock, as you call it, that's the spot where we adjust so this is our only pond that we can adjust the elevation of it.
Okay.
Like
So
the
in
outflow?
the summertime, we
Yeah.
raise it up so it's deeper, keeps the cattails and the stuff down.
Okay.
In the wintertime, we open it up, which then lowers the pond down, similar to you do the canal. So if anybody accidentally fell through, again, we've heard that we promote
Behind that sign.
ice skating. We don't promote ice skating. We don't promote usage on the water. But that little dock, at the end of it, there's the adjustment for the pond. So we open it in the,
Whose dock is that? It's our dock?
It's ours.
it's our dock.
Okay.
This is all of our town of Penfield property
Right.
along that frontage, but that's the adjustment gate that opens the gate in the wintertime, lets the water lowers the pond, just as a safety issue. Come springtime, we close the gate, that lets the water go
Okay.
higher. So
Makes sense.
I don't know, groups' thoughts? I think I need more information. I'm just feeling this might move the situation up or down the street, and I don't know if that really
Yeah, I know.
solves people
Even
parking
putting
on the
boulders
road.
there would make people just, okay, I can't park there, I'll just park in front of their house.
Well,
Yeah.
and it might be
So I think
that the
that's-
people park on the road rather than the berm.
Right.
And
So
Which,
then-
again, is legal if they're
That's
parking
legal,
on the
yes.
shoulder of the road. Maybe it takes away from them parking sideways and all
Right.
over the place on the berm. If that's a safety issue, I think we need to look at that.
Yeah.
This car is parked on the shoulder of the road, so even if we had boulders, they're parked legally
Park legally, yep.
in that location. So I'm just thinking,
Unless we do boulders and no parking signs.
but again, you drive down the road in front of the Ratliff's house and you park there.
Or they
and-
park across the street,
Or you park on the other side of the street, so,
yeah.
I've also seen there's a gentleman that has a batting cage right around the corner there, and the team will come over for batting practice, and they'll have cars on the
park
road
around.
as
So,
well.
so we hear
Well,
your
that's
concerns.
not very different than like a neighbor having a party.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, we hear your concerns, we understand the want and the ask. To me, I just don't know if that's the answer that gets you where you want to be quite yet, so.
Yeah, I think at this point, I would, like, as a staff member, I'd recommend working internally with other departments and seeing if there's another option to keep vehicles on the road so that you're less likely to have cars coming out at different angles or like the safety concerns of traffic.
Yeah.
We want people to be following the traffic law.
Can you just put no
and it
fishing
be a little
signs up?
safer. Then that needs to be enforced somehow.
It falls in, we have 65 ponds around town.
Well, just,
that
we don't have
own
to
that-
put no fishing on all of the
Well,
ponds.
if we
How
post
do
one
you-
no fishing, then why aren't we posting all no fishing?
Oh, I
So,
get
Yeah,
it.
you
It's
have
a
to
ripple
find a
effect. Everybody
criteria
will
if
want
you're
it.
gonna do
Yep.
that.
Okay.
Again, there's,
I would wonder.
yeah.
And, you know, not for nothing, but I've seen a lot of kids come down on bicycles with fishing poles, so I probably, majority of the people, you're not trying to get rid of the people in the neighborhood out there fishing, I'm sure. It's just the people that are traveling in from other areas, right? So,
Well, it sounds like they have and are continuing to do the work to help with that, which, I mean, I can tell as a staff member, I appreciate that getting it off a fishing app is, I think, is going to be helpful at minimum. Yeah, there's probably going to be people that know the pond and come back, but it is the focus of this committee to deal with the traffic matter at hand.
Right.
Okay. Are we then tabling it tonight for some further discussion and information?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for sharing and answering questions.
Thank you for your help.
So that moves us into traffic concerns from other jurisdictions. So we just kind of highlight these, but they fall under either the county or state DOT. So the first, we had a request for Jackson Road, just out here, for a flashing crosswalk request. It did get sent off to the county DOT. They just responded recently. It basically does not meet their warrants for a crosswalk or the RFBs. You need at least 10,000 cars a day to meet their minimum standard for that. I believe we're in the 3,000 car per day. We've adopted a very similar policy, so it doesn't meet our warrants for that. So at this time, it doesn't meet neither county, one, it's their road, two, we've adopted our new rectangular rapid flashing beacon policy. So under that, again, county road, but just, for the neighbors, it doesn't meet those warrants at this time. Second one was a left turn arrow request at 250 in Wayland. This falls under the New York State DOT jurisdiction, so we passed it along to them. I've not heard from them yet, so that's on my follow-up, is to hear back from them. And again, it falls under their jurisdiction, so as the town public at home, we can advocate for it, we can ask, we can pass along concerns, but at the end of the day, it does fall under the state or county, as you look at jurisdiction or pecking order of how it falls. And then the last one was the autism sign request. Again, we sent this off to the county DOT. They responded back that it doesn't, it's not supported by the manual of urban traffic control devices, so they have declined that request. We'll have to follow up as whether they responded to the resident or not, or whether they're looking for us to do that. Either way, we'll get back to the resident to let them know where that
This was
stands.
the one about the autism?
Yep, so it was on a county road, so they sent it off to them. I know there's been concerns, is one, if it's a deaf child area or a blind person area, I think you understand what to do. Autism is so diverse that an autism child sign,
Yeah.
one, it's not in the manual.
I've seen them before.
Two, and people have them in their yard, and I
Right.
know we've talked to, resident, and they said, if it's in your property on your yard and you want to put it in, but to
Knock yourself
have a
out, yeah.
dedicated street sign, one, it's not in the current New York State manual, so it doesn't exist, and then two, as we've talked about before, what message are
Yeah,
you trying to
what am I
communicate?
supposed to do?
In a split second, what message are you trying to communicate to the driver that they can take that process? If I see a deaf child, hitting my horn isn't going to do anything. I need to be more aware. Or a blind person, if somebody's coming towards the road, hopefully you take that information quickly
Right.
and then, can respond.
When I reread that email, though, the individual who was requesting this said first she used yard twice, and then they used road. Which one did they want?
I think they
The
asked for,
actual road
I think they asked
sign?
for both. So one, they would hope that a street sign was there, which, so the county wouldn't, but they said, could they put one in their yard? And we followed up with the code enforcement, said, yes, if it's inside their yard, it meets proper setbacks, similar to people have the signs in their yard that says, slow down, or drive like
Or
your
go
kids. Go Bill, or drive like your kids live here.
Yeah.
People have other, signs in their yard, as long as it's in their space, it's outside the right-of-way, they were allowed to have that. So I know that we initially followed up with the code enforcement and told the resident that, and then second was the follow-up from the county about an actual street sign.
Okay.
So we do have 2 held items. Aimee, if you want to
Yes.
review
So
those.
both of these items relate to the Willow Pond neighborhood. I know we had a lot of discussions about this neighborhood last spring, and at the time, we had some of the traffic data for this neighborhood, but not all. And now we have all of the data that we were hoping to obtain, so we can continue to discuss these items. Just as a general overview, we have the Willow Pond neighborhood, concerns of speeding, and we have some crosswalks that are also in this central kind of portion of Willow Pond. So given that, I'll start with the first item, which is Willow Pond Way speed cushions. So in order to consider this request, we wanted to obtain traffic data. So we obtained traffic data from 3 locations on Willow Pond Way. We also obtained traffic data on Sanders Farm Drive. So our first location was on this eastern portion of Willow Pond Way. And I'll also mention the speed limit throughout this neighborhood is 25 miles an hour. So on this eastern portion, we put the traffic counters right about here. We had an 85th percentile speed of 30 miles an hour. I did look at the accident data for this stretch of Willow Pond Way, and there were 3 accidents in the last 3 years. One was a drunk driver. They were, I believe, driving south on Willow Pond Way and then just veered off the road and hit like a rock or a sign or something. It was a 1-vehicle accident. The other 2 accidents were both relating to failure to yield the right-of-way. So one, I believe it was on Devonshire Circle. There was somebody stopped at the stop sign on Devonshire Circle. Someone else was driving on Willow Pond Way, and the person on Devonshire just went and hit the driver on Willow Pond Way. Another one was somebody coming out of their driveway and hitting another vehicle that was driving on Willow Pond Way. So those are the 3 accidents that were on record. Looking at the traffic calming analysis for this portion of Willow Pond Way, I'll pull it up for us here. So we did get 1 point for volume. There was enough volume for this classification of road to warrant 1 point. I would say the accidents that were recorded, I don't know if they're necessarily related to speeding, but again, to be conservative, I did count that as a point on our worksheet here. And then also, I know that we have had residents anecdotally report that there are some cut-through issues in this neighborhood. So again, I conservatively added that as a point here as well. So in total, we had 3 points, which indicates that educational measures should be considered. So in this case, I think that would be, again, enforcement requests and I think it might be good to put the speed trailer out here.
The 85th was 30 through this area?
Correct, 30 miles an hour, yes. I did look at the difference to the 85th percentile speed going north and going south. So forgive me because I don't remember which one was which, but one was 29 miles an hour and one was 30 miles an hour, so very similar.
Well, and
Yeah.
I would generally say that that neighborhood is, or at least that road is not a cut through, because anyone going in and out of it, because it takes so long to get to the other side of the whole development, because it's multiple developments.
I don't see it as an easy cut through, but some neighbors, during recent
But a cut
things.
through is normally like you take a neighborhood
It's a
street to go from a main street to another
Another
main
main
street.
street.
So in
Well,
this case,
so-
it would be 441 to 250.
Yeah, I don't
It's
see
gonna
that as a
take you
shortcut, but,
way longer to go through all of the neighborhoods,
Right.
yeah.
because it's really like 3 different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But the
But
conservative
even
approach. if people-
conservatively,
Yeah,
it's not,
it's not warranting physical improvements on.
yeah.
Correct, yes.
So that would be applicable to the speed cushions
Drop it down.
Correct.
item?
Two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, was there a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I didn't,
No.
I was thinking that would take a point off. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
I mean, we
If
gave
you-
them
We-
the
we
credit
were-
just to look at
yeah.
it and see if that was the difference between, that would tip it over, but, we've got the scoring
Yeah.
matrix that's in our traffic calming manual that we're following and what's being quoted here, and, that's online if people want to take a look at that. So it shows the ratings of, as we look at speed, volume, accidents, all those different items that show is there physical measures warranted? Is there just educational efforts, or is there, design stuff that we need to take a look at? So,
Yeah.
sorry, please
No,
continue.
no, valuable input. Yes, so yes, just to summarize here, our traffic calming analysis did not indicate physical measures, but it did indicate educational measures, such as the traffic feedback cart, so we can request that our DPW put that out there. I did, again, just to be extra conservative, compare our data for this section of Willow Pond Way to our speed hump policy. Most of the criteria were met, such as it's a local street, primarily residential. The ADT is over 500, so we do have a volume that would qualify here. The only item that did not meet our criteria was the 85th percentile speed. So in our speed hump policy, we require a 85th percentile speed of 35 miles an hour or higher. And again, here, the 85th percentile speed was 30 miles an hour, so that doesn't qualify. So in both analyses, both analyses are indicating that speed humps are not warranted here. Hate to do this to you, but I also did the same kind of analysis for both other locations on Willow Pond Way that we gathered traffic data for. And in both locations, so we had one, I'll call it the north leg of Willow Pond Way up here. Again, speed limit is 25 miles an hour. Our 85th percentile speed here was 28 miles an hour. And over here on the west side, we had the traffic counters out near the entrance to the apartments. We also had an 85th percentile speed of 28 miles an hour. In both of these locations, the ADT was less than 500 miles an hour, 500 vehicles per day. And obviously the 85th percentile speed was not above 35 miles an hour, and less than 40% of the traffic was at or above the speed limit. So again, in these locations, speed humps, or I guess in this case, speed cushions, were not warranted.
Okay.
Any questions about the speed cushion topic before we move on? Does everybody kind of agree?
Yeah.
No, okay. So we'll request the speed feedback cart be placed out there. Okay, so the next item, the RFB, the reflective rectangular rapid flashing beacon.
It's blinky lights.
Yeah, the flashing lights. So this was requested basically to augment the crosswalks that are already existing in the neighborhood. I will say in this aerial image, there are no crosswalks striped. If you go out there today, the crosswalks are striped, so the striping is out there. Whoop. So we, again, have a RFB policy that we have adopted as a committee. And we can look at the analysis for that. So again, there's certain criteria that need to be met in order to warrant a flashing beacon, such as, is there a striped crosswalk there already? Are there any other, like, pedestrian or other traffic control signals in the area? So all of that we met. The only thing is, again, similar to the request on Jackson Road, our AADT is not high enough here. So our AADT, the requirement is that it needs to be 10,000. In this area, depending on, which traffic count you look at, we're at about 1,000.
Also, the speed isn't adequate.
Correct.
So
You're right.
the speed limit would have to be between 30 and 45 miles per hour.
Correct.
It being 25, it does not meet our standard.
Does not meet the criteria, yep.
I think the reason that most people want that crosswalk there is there's a lot of seniors in the Willow Ponds Legacy that walk over to Wegmans through that path, that sidewalk back there by the apartments. And they don't move that fast.
Well, so the crosswalk is there. It's
Right.
the rectangular rapid flashing beacon that we would potentially be adding.
Right.
Well,
And-
that was the request, was to add the flashing lights for it.
Yeah, it really just does not meet the criteria at this time. Having looked at the signage in the area, it may be appropriate to determine if the reflectivity is adequate at this point, if
Okay.
it's worn away, if it's the most up-to-date crosswalk signage. That's normally like the first step that we
Okay.
would take in this
There's
type of
advanced
situation.
signs as well, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I know there's signage at the crosswalk. I believe there's advanced signage as well. But I think the last time we looked at it, it's the older, like,
doesn't show it.
darker yellow signage rather than like the bright greenish yellow. So that might be something that
We can have the
could help.
DPW follow up on looking at making sure those are the latest and greatest.
And that the
Okay.
reflectivity isn't worn away, that it's meeting the requirement.
Yeah. And then they go around periodically and check those, and then as, signs need to be replaced, they do upgrades to those. But yeah, it has the walk ahead, or crosswalk ahead sign, the crosswalk here sign, so.
Now, is that one crosswalk sign partially blocked by the mile per hour sign there?
the Speed limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something you could look at, is that
Yeah.
It's like
as
they're
you're
all on top of
approaching,
each other.
so I think it's something we can have the DPW kind of review that area, but the striping is new. We even added a striping down the center line to kind of,
Oh, that does, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
I
a very
think it's offset
wide
slightly.
entrance.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
looks
something
good.
new that was just added, because so the divided entrance that exists there, you come to the other side of it, and now you kind of go out into a wide open space. So I think that encourages people here. You may come in slowly into the neighborhood, and then as the road gets wider, people feel they can go faster.
Right.
Yeah.
So we recently added the striping on the south side of that intersection, so I think we're going to go back out this fall and recount it. You can see in Amy's photo here, that new striping kind of restricts those lanes a little bit, so that's something new that we did add
Okay.
most recently to kind of, visually limit the lanes a little bit. Hopefully people will, take that and slow down a bit. And I say we can go count them again this fall and see if, there's a noticeable difference in speeds from that.
So the further action at this time is we'll have the DPW follow up with the signage.
I believe so, if that's, everybody's in agreement?
Yes,
Yep.
that sounds good.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. Let's see, we're getting close to time, but I've got a few updates we can get through. So Linda provided our draft meeting dates for 2026. I just want to note, we did add a January date. We typically don't have a January date. But with our active transportation group that's going on, I believe they're going to be back here in October. So they're going to come back to this group being the, excuse me,
Yeah.
the main body, as part of that. So October, we'll see what the rest of our agenda is, but much of our agenda may focus on the active transportation piece. Hopefully they've kept the data from the summer, have information to share, so they want to come in October, and then in timing, they wanted to come back in January. So just since we've got our calendar time, we're adding to January.
Okay.
Whether we need a February or something, we can always cancel another one, but just wanted to make that clear to the group that, that is an add from what we've had in the past, but that's, just trying to support that active transportation program. One more item, as we jumped onto the informational items, I talked about October, our October 21st meeting. There is still an active transportation survey out there, if anybody hasn't taken it yet. There's signs up here in the town hall, there's signs around town and on the website. You can click on the QR code and go in and answer some questions, and talks about where do you like to walk and bike, and do you feel safe in town, and are there areas suggested that you'd like to see improvements. So as we go through this, obviously this group as well as the public at home, please go in, provide as much information as you can, provide feedback. That'll help as we complete that study. And then our last item, just as kind of a wrap-up, this is something that's kind of been out there for a while, is Poplar and Burroughs Hills. We went out and did a site distance study, as we've talked about for others tonight. The sign is in, so the yield sign has been added in that area. So that's been kind of, I think we talked about that in the spring. We had to do some site distance stuff over the summer. We wanted to wait for the leaves to come out, because I think when the original request concern came in, it was in the February, March area. There was no trees out. Or, excuse me, the trees were out, the leaves were not out.
Yeah.
So just wanted to make sure we were doing a true assessment once leaf out condition. How does it look in the summertime? So we waited until the summer. So the yield sign is in, and obviously Amy's got another one from Meadows End and Armatail that we did earlier this year as well. So just wanted to circle back. I believe the DPW, another update, we've talked about Scribner and Embry. Ladies are very familiar with that. I believe those, now that Scribner Road has been topped, I believe that's next on the DPW's agenda, is to double post that intersection.
Okay.
So we did the cold in place recycle over the summer. Just recently, and Amy's got more photos of that. So this is the little train that went down the street, kind of chews up all the asphalt, all the stone, mixes in some new tackifier, paves it back down as a binder course. That had to sit for a month to cure. They just went back this past week, coordinated with the schools to let them know
Yeah, I know.
to get in to do it. It wasn't ideal, but when you can get the equipment, when you can get the contractor
Right.
in is when you can get the contractor in. So we coordinated with the schools to be there between 10 and 2. We avoided early drive time. We avoided pickup in the afternoon. But they just went in and paved and topped that part of Scribner Road just last week. Now that that's done, they're going to be circling back and then doing the double posting of the stop signs on either side, and see if that, again, will help that Scribner-Embry intersection.
Awesome.
People that drive
Just to
through
be
there.
clear, these are the before photos. This is not the final photos of
No,
what they
this
just
is-
did last week.
No, this is the in process.
This is the in progress.
We recognize that.
good.
It's quite
We live right
a
there.
train of
Right around there, yeah.
process
Yeah.
for that.
So they're still, right now, they're still
They
paving,
gotta put
like,
the lines.
where the
Oh, the aprons.
driveways and the aprons of roads.
Yeah.
And then they've got the little
And they did that
things in the center, but they haven't done
So they
the
put the stripe down.
to the
everything else,
striping,
so
yeah,
it's-
which is helpful because so many people were just driving down the middle of the road, like, I'm like, oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah. So hopefully, once that's done, then we'll get
Yeah.
the striping scheduled and then get the
awesome.
striping complete.
All right.
Any other questions, comments?
Yep.
Okay. So as I said earlier, next meeting is October 21st. With that, we'll be adjourning at 5:59 PM. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Perfect.